I want to ask you about your accent.
Oh, that's not the first question, is it?
It is, because, I mean, it is a bit British.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit. Transatlantic.
But you grew up in Charleston.
I did.
And you went to school in Boston.
Yes.
And then you went to London.
And I've been there for 10 years.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I do it too. I think it's a musician's ears thing,
I think
right?
so
You
too.
can't help it.
So there's that, and as an excuse, there's the fact that I've been in London now for 10 years, and the fact that my job is simply to listen. So then
That's the point. And it wasn't, you didn't need an excuse, because that's why I asked.
Yeah.
I also think that you are listening to the world. The part of listening that is listening to the world, that is listening to the community and engaging in dialogue with the community and letting that inform your music making. Can you talk to me a little bit about how that started for you? What's the origin of that?
Well, I guess it really all starts at the very beginning of my musical life. And, I came from a not musical family. None of my family members are musicians at all. But they're all music appreciators, and they love, just different genres of music. And I stumbled very much upon music through the public school system. And when I got, trapped into this world of classical music, I thought to myself, what an amazing field, what an amazing, art form. And to me, I still, even then and now, can't put my finger on why it isn't something that everyone feels so inspired about. Because when you're there and in the world of it, and you realize, this, particularly within a symphonic tradition, this idea of creating one sound out of many voices. I mean, that just alone blew my mind from the very beginning. And to me, I think that sort of thread of unity is something that always inspires me. So then I think to myself, surely everyone can feel this, and surely everyone can be absorbed by that same feeling and sensation. So I think it's sort of my artistic goal as a leader to allow that to be a part of my artistic vision and journey as a leader and as a musician, really.
It really is stripping things down and getting back to the beginning, because I do think that every single human has a very visceral response to hearing this music, and then walls get built up around it and constructs get built. And it can get ruined easily.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to remember, Mozart was popular music at one point in time. And I think that's the thing. Mozart was the music. Classical music was the music of a time period. And I think, it's great to have different genres. I'm a lover of jazz and et cetera, et cetera. But this idea that, there are so many differences, and barriers between classical music and different genres, this still doesn't make sense to me. And I think that that's just sort of part of my mission is to how do we connect these dots that, as you said, maybe in previous times we've just had barriers, this idea of being closed off. How do we break those barriers, But
I mean, I even remember in my own training feeling the barriers start to emerge. Start to, I think you're in this because you love the music. And then if you think about some of the things that happen, during your education, I remember, one of the things I remember hearing, I remember sitting in a practice room in the conservatory and hearing, the same piece of music, the same Chopin etude, right? And that feeling of, are we in an echo chamber? Are we all doing the same thing for the same reason? That was one of the things. That became a barrier, and I think that there are so many that get put in place, not just for potential listeners, but for musicians as well.
Well, yeah. And I think my biggest thing is to be able to challenge oneself to think about the why, right? Because, like you said, I think it's very easily, it's very easy to just be a part of that echo chamber and just, not understand the deeper meaning. We all probably can relate to this, that question of why really came about during COVID. And, when everything's taken away from us, you sit there and you think, well, I could be doing other things with my life, couldn't I? I mean, and one gets, almost frightened about the fact that everything can go in a blink of an eye. Yeah. So then you're forced to ask the question why. And I was certainly forced to ask the question why during that time.
Yeah. Well, that's how this show started.
Yeah.
Was the asking, I think all of us were asking why. And permitting ourselves to imagine, some reasons for making music and some ways of making music that, again, those barriers and constructs had kind of hidden for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that I discovered during COVID, it wasn't pleasant, but I started thinking differently about audience. Like, 'cause you're putting something up on the internet and who knew who was watching.
Yeah.
And that was actually quite thrilling. And I remember when we started coming back into the concert hall thinking, what's happening to those people? How do we, how do we keep those doors open? And I wonder if that's something that has informed your...
Definitely. I mean, it's something that I'm certainly have thought about a lot, because we all had to sort of rebuild audiences. And something also that really moved me a lot was this really interesting sort of study and announcement, really, from the World Health Organization, talking about this epidemic of loneliness and isolation that happened sort of, post-COVID, essentially. And so, then you do think about the audience, and you're thinking about the world in that sense, and you're realizing, right, we need to do something as artists to react to that. And so what better way and vehicle than an orchestra and a concert hall, which for me, a concert hall should represent a community center, essentially, of sorts. And, how music can, and always has been, a unifying factor in our world that we live in. And so, I think it definitely made me think about the audience and in a completely different way than I was thinking about it beforehand. I think we can all relate to maybe being in this, kind of rat race that we were all in before COVID, and not really paying as much attention. But I'm glad that we're forced to think about this now, because I think that's where a positive shift can be made.
Yeah. It's been such a twisty process coming back.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right?
Yeah,
and remember all the conversations that happened during the pandemic about transformation. And transformation is hard.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't just happen.
Oh, no. Yeah, definitely.
I know that one of the things that you are really committed to is going to meet the audience where they are, right? And not just expecting everybody to file into the concert hall, which is so important. And I've been aware that it's been hard for American orchestras to get that audience back in the last few years. But, I move around. I remember recently I was playing with an orchestra in one of those very huge concert halls in a not very huge town,
Right,
And I think that the numbers are just wrong at this point, because where are you finding 2,500 people on any given Wednesday night to come to the symphony? And I really wish that everyone could do that, could just go out, because there are definitely 2,500 people.
Oh, yeah.
They're just not in that room.
Yeah, it's the idea of, the idea of what a symphony orchestra is, right? I think to some can still feel intimidating. So if we're going to, be in a potentially intimidating space, plus be an intimidating art form, we have no hope, right? So why don't we just be relatable and actually go out to important community spaces? It's also about where you go, of course, right? We've got a list of places, particularly through our program at the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. We have this Symphony in the City program, and it's very, really site-specific, if you will. And we really think about where we're going. We don't just kind of do it haphazardly. And so I think the intentionality behind it is equally as important than sort of the mindset of bringing it out. It has to be thought about. And I'm really proud of what we're certainly doing at Baltimore with that, because it has seen a sort of pipeline to the whole, essentially. And I think we've recently just done some audience surveys, and it's working, but it really takes a good amount of intentionality to make sure that that pipeline is effective, essentially. And I'm really. It's just the beginning, but I think we're really on the road to that.
I think it takes patience too. I mean, when you look at this equation, what to you is a measure of success? How long does it take for that pipeline to?
Gosh, I think you're right. I think patience is key. Rome wasn't built in a day. You have to just take your time and again, slowly and intentionally put one foot in front of the other. It's long game. It is really long game.
It's really long game.
Because trust building is long game.
Yeah.
And essentially that's what you're doing
Yes.
with your community, right? If an orchestra is trying to reach out and say, trust us, this is a wonderful journey to be a part of. And trust us, this isn't what you may think it is, but it's something for you.
Right. Well, and also, best case scenario is that there's a 10-year-old who experiences this, who comes back into that hall 30 years later, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that too. Do you have the experience that I have where you meet so many people of a generation who will say that they were brought into this music via Bernstein's Young People's Concerts. And I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
One TV show.
Yeah. But I mean, I think about him a lot when I do this work,
I'm sure
actually.
you do.
And I at one point decided to rewatch all the videos because I was just fascinated about how he demystified the whole idea and concept of even music making. It in such a really powerful, meaningful, authentic, and never dumbing down way,
Right.
Then I think that empowers the audience to become better listeners and to really be a part of the journey that you're taking them on. And so, I mean, really, I have nothing but admiration because he really created a generation of incredible music lovers, but also music listeners. You have to, almost guide the audience so that they can really fully, enjoy the experience that you're giving them. Essentially, you're a tour guide in a way, and I think that's really important to remember as leaders of an arts institution.
I mean, you're right there in the lineage, aren't you? Lenny to Marin.
Oh gosh, no pressure. Well, I mean, I'm honored you said that, but I mean, it's part of our responsibility as artists, as leaders, and I really feel that importance of responsibility, particularly as I lead these fantastic organizations and orchestras who are aligned and ready for change in a way that I think is very exciting. So
So Lenny, I would have guessed that. I know that Yo-Yo Ma was a light bulb to your honor for you when you were a kid.
I get to work with them next month, and I can't believe it for the first time as a conductor.
For the first time.
Yeah, I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Another person who is also, a human first in a lot of ways, and someone who really loves to connect. I guess it's a lineage of these people that I felt their connection, growing up, and I think that's what inspired me to even become a musician in a lot of ways, because, even conducting, I mean, I conducted when I was in 8th grade. Of course, I had no idea what I was doing. But what I was so inspired by is that the score and being able to see that unity that I talked about earlier, that everything coming together to create one sound. I mean, that still to this day blows my mind.
I get goosebumps every time.
Yeah.
The downbeat of a concerto.
It's just amazing. It's just like, what other field, where everyone has to have this amazing amount of concentration and then bam, it's crazy. It's amazing, it's just amazing.
Yeah. I know you also talk a lot about Black conductors who've come before you. James DePriest, Dean Dixon.
Yep.
Did you ever know Michael Morgan out in California?
No, I sadly didn't, but we had a lovely 1 or 2 sort of chats and interviews together. But another, wonderful trailblazing artist, of course. Yeah.
So much. And I mean, what he did, incredible. But I was thinking, I was lucky to know him, and actually didn't get to play with him because he died just before
right.
we were going to work together.
Mm.
But just looking at what he did in Oakland,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about something too, which is that I think that anyone who has been, the first, the only, or even just one of a few, there's a different relationship to this idea of opening the door. Right? If you felt not invited, or if you felt not seen, I don't think you can help this impulse to make sure that changes.
Yeah. I've maybe never really given a full thought, but I think maybe, subconsciously that is what I'm thinking about. And, it's not only, being the first African American, but it's even from my socioeconomic background, I essentially come from a family where, it became a single parent household. And, it was hard. It was hard times, and so there is that element of it as well. And so to put all that into perspective and realize, well, A, how lucky I was, but B, that this really can be an art form for all. No matter your socioeconomic background, race, creed, religion, this can be really an art form that everyone can truly relate to. And I think, I felt that for the first time when I got accepted to the Charleston County School of the Arts when I was in middle school. I barely got in. I was waitlisted until like the week before. And by the skin of my teeth, went to the school. And what I noticed there is that there was just these mix of people. We were all nerds, and we just wanted to be around music and arts. But I remember going to a lot of my friends' house, and they were of all different backgrounds and all different socioeconomic sort of backgrounds in general, and none of that mattered, in the school. And it was so powerful to have that melting pot experience at the beginning of my life, because I think that sort of set up my mindset to what this is all about, in a way. That this goes beyond so many labels. And that's that goes back to the overall guiding principle of the beautiful and natural sort of road to unity that music has, always, it always has this sense of unity from even the most different backgrounds. It's so incredible when you realize that, I think.
Well, I mean, you stepped into your major career here in the U.S. during this time of a lot of change.
Yeah.
And now you're taking over this orchestra, the Festival Orchestra at Lincoln Center, which is an organization that has my heart so deeply because of true transformation and this real commitment to, I think, a broad vision about what art can be and for whom and, how we do it.
Yeah. And it's not about eliminating it, is it?
No.
I mean, it's about maybe putting it on a pedestal, a higher pedestal, so everyone can see it. And I think that's the beauty of what Lincoln Center is doing, and even Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, is that shining that light in a different way, or maybe in a stronger way, in a more powerful way. But it's never to diminish it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's much more fun to be working in a time when there is reimagination and considering than to work in a time when we're just going to, follow the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
I mean, what an amazing time we're in now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we're able to even talk about these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know from personal experience that one's relationship to time and the future shifts when one becomes a parent.
Yes.
As you've just done.
Yes, indeed.
So
And
sometimes
sleep.
I ask these questions about the future and they just are vague, but I will frame this in the context of your daughter.
Yeah.
And if you look down the road, what do you hope for the world of the what do you want her experience, I guess, of, music and art to be in her life?
I just want it to be accessible. It's very simple.
Yeah.
I want people to feel that they can just go to a symphony without it being the symphony. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in, I want it to be a part of our general dialogue, that it's not this stigma or this I don't know, this sort of elite thing,
Right.
You know, it is high art for whatever that concept means. It is, and it is the most powerful art, and we shouldn't. Again, it's never to lessen it, but it's really to just open the doors so wide, and just for that accessibility. Yeah, I think that's all I ever want. Because for me, it's I say this often, going out to a concert is better than any Netflix series that's currently on. You just get off the screens, get off the television. It's so much better just to go to a concert and be a part of that unity, that community, that between the stage and the audience. It's good for us. It's good for all of us to have that. I think if we did more of that and less of Netflix and social media, we'd probably be in a much happier place, to be honest, with the world.
But then people have to be allowed to wear their pajamas to the symphony hall.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine. We'll do
Done.
a little bit of night music.
Sold.
That's fine. Why not? Why not?